Now, if you want to see why I bought the Nikon Z30, check out this video here and then come back to this one. But in this video, I'm just going to go through the notes that I've been taking during the time that I have had this. This is totally unscripted, and so it's not going to be smooth. Normally, I would do something like an unbox, and I would talk about, you know, the things that I experienced for the first time. However, this Nikon Z30 has actually been making all kinds of content. I've been working out some kinks with some other pieces of equipment, but the Nikon Z30 has been working really well for what I've been doing. And so as soon as this arrived, I had to put it to work. So today, instead, we're going to go through my notes that I've been taking in the field as I have been actually working this thing. First off, credit to the Nikon Z30 because, like I said, I took it out of the box, I charged up the battery, and I literally put it to work, and it was that easy. But speaking of charging it, they actually don't include a charger. You get a cable, but not a wall charger. They don't even give you a dock. Now, I got this used in basically brand new condition from B&H, and they didn't even mention that that stuff was supposed to be in there. So that is incredibly cheap, Nikon. How dare you? Now, luckily, I do have plenty of docks laying around the house, and so I was able to plug it in, but plugging it into the wall was really finicky. In fact, the first time I plugged it in, I didn't know if there would be a light indicating that it was actually charging, and so I just left it. It did not charge, of course. There is a light that comes on whenever it's charging, and it's orange. And I discovered that by finagling around the USB-C cable trying to get it to charge. And so charging it in the wall is really finicky. Don't even bother with it. Whenever you buy this, go ahead and buy the charger. That charger, by the way, that I bought after the fact is the Nikon MH32, which charges the Nikon Z30's small ENEL25. Anyway, that's very cheap of Nikon to not include a wall charger, and don't give me that crap about how, well, it was designed with streamers in mind and it's going to be plugged into the computer the whole time. That's not everybody. In fact, I've seen a ton of people who are saying that they bought this for their kid's first camera, or they bought it as a little kind of pocketable grab-and-go kind of camera. I think there's more regular people just using this for plinking around or learning how to shoot photography than there probably are actually streamers. Because the thing is, Nikon, you were real late to the whole streamer thing. They've been doing their thing since forever ago. I don't want to rant because there's a lot of fantastic stuff about this camera. But the first thing actually in my notes is it feels surprisingly great in the hand, and that it does. It fits really good in the hand. It is super tiny, but it somehow still feels as comfortable as every other Nikon camera. It's a good design. The next thing I noted was it feels cheaper than other Nikon Z cameras, but it does feel better than I thought it would. Maybe better than the price would suggest. I don't exactly know what I meant by better than what the price would suggest. I got this thing for like, I don't know, like $700 or something with the PZ, or $660. I got this for really cheap, and I was kind of expecting it to feel like a lens cap or something, like really cheap, but it actually doesn't. I mean, it feels like plastic, but it doesn't feel like cheap, flimsy plastic. A note on the articulating screen, which I don't like on my photography cameras. This isn't a photography camera for me. This flippy screen feels 1,000 times better than Canon articulating screens. I was astonished at the Canon R5 whenever I tested it, at how cheap that screen actually felt. Like you could physically like move it this way and it don't move that way. This feels much more solid. There's a tiny bit of give, yes, that you can feel, but it feels solid. The Canon ones absolutely don't, in my opinion. I noted that the battery life in my use is not particularly great. I wrote bad right here, but that's because that was before I realized that plugging it into the wall, it actually wasn't charging it at all. It was kind of running on whatever battery power was in that battery. But in follow-up shooting, it is just okay in 4K. Now, this camera will do slow-mo at full HD, and surprisingly, that actually lasted quite a while. A lot longer than I expected. I did like a whole 6 videos just recently. Now, I was having issues with the gimbal. The gimbal was wanting to rattle because it's game over for that thing. But I didn't even have a single bar consumed after shooting that many full HD 120 videos. And since the video quality of this camera is fantastic, I'm not really too concerned about shooting in anything in 1080. If I just need the battery life, is 4K better? Yes, but I've just noted that the quality is better than acceptable for like my YouTube content. And so, yeah, I'll shoot in 4K if I've got a couple of things to do, but I don't feel bad about shooting an entire day in 1080. So in 4K, it's just kind of okay, but in 1080, it seems to just go and go and go. So I have shot a little bit of photography content just to kind of show you what the images will look like from this. But I noted that I bought this for video work on YouTube, and so I like the flipping screen. But if you like photography, it sucks when it's bright outside not having a viewfinder. Now, again, I don't care. That's not why I bought it. But when it's really bright outside and you're doing this, oh man, it is an absolute pain trying to block this thing out of the sun. It's not a super incredibly bright screen anyway. Actually, funny side story, whenever I was shooting the content for you guys with this thing, I kept going like this, and I was like, dadgummit. And like every single time I moved to a new location, I went like this. So it sucks not having the viewfinder if you're generally shooting photography and you're used to shooting in an EVF. Now, if you're not and you just want something to kind of plink around, I'm sure you'll love that. But if you've ever used a viewfinder, you're going to miss it, I promise you. On that note, as far as the screen goes, I noted that it isn't Nikon's best offering, but it does look good and it works for me. And then an additional note on the pictures I have taken, they look like Nikon files. The files look really good. Absolutely, totally Nikon stuff. If all else failed, I had 100% certainty that the photographic files would look good on this. Next, I noted that the card slot being behind the battery in the grip, I don't really like that. I like the kind of side handle grips, and it's fine. It's whatever. Small price to pay. My final note is I think the best thing about the Nikon Z30 is the build for the dollar and how surprisingly Nikon it is in ergonomics and image output in both photo and video for the price. And in a final improvised notes set aside, I will say that I've done a lot of work in a short amount of time with the Nikon Z30. In fact, I did about 10 tasks with it before I even set up anything besides the eye menu. And the Nikon Z30 is getting it done, and the video in particular looks really, really good. Every single kind of piece of equipment that I've tried to use to do the job that I bought the Nikon Z30 for has always struggled with blotchy, disgusting shadows. And so they look great when you're doing 50% of your stuff, but if you're out and you're moving around, there is a significant portion of the video that starts to fall apart. The Nikon Z30 is not doing that. In fact, I have not had to apply any noise reduction in DaVinci Resolve, and that is really uncommon because it looks good. And so, the Nikon Z30, it's working really well for me right now. I'm Z-Wade, the Z-Wade, and Z-Wade Photo. Stay sharp, YouTube.